Good morning and welcome to Explore Within Coaching. I'm Oceana. So, somebody reached out to me recently and through a conversation, they asked if I would do a video about grief. And actually, what they asked for was how to fast forward grief. And I'm sorry to say there's no such thing as fast forwarding grief. It is a very natural thing to go through when you lose anything, whether it be the death of a loved one, a loss of a relationship, a loss of a job, a loss of a pet, any kind of loss, you can experience grief. And most often people do experience it. Now, I know most people are very familiar with the 5 stages of grief. I actually prescribe more to the 7 stages of grief. And so that's what I'm going to share with you today. I do have notes, so I'll be looking down to just make sure I get all the steps correct. The first thing with grief is always shock and denial. The moment you get the news or find out that you've lost something, the first thing that usually happens is we go into shock or we deny that was even possible. We react with a disbelief is what it is. This can last for a while. I know when I lost my mom, I had 45 days to deal with the fact that I was going to be losing her. And for that full 45 days, I couldn't believe that was the reality. I had a hard time comprehending a life without her. And then once she did pass, there was the shock that she was actually gone. And even though I knew it was coming, I still couldn't believe that she was actually gone. So this stage of shock and denial can last a very long time. And that's okay. It is completely natural. The second stage is pain and guilt. And this is quite often where we start replacing that shock and that disbelief that we've been feeling with things that are our emotions start to feel overwhelming. They start to feel heavy. It's like being in excruciating pain is a really good way of putting it. It's like you're in excruciating pain and there's no relief for it. There's no such thing as laughter. You can't take a pain medication. You can't drink it away, smoke it away. It's just this heaviness of emotion that overcomes us. And so this is that pain and that guilt. This is also where you might start blaming yourself. If only I had, then this wouldn't have happened. I should have been there more. I should have, I could have, I definitely would have. Like there's all of these emotions that start coming up, and those are what are holding us down. And again, this is a very natural stage of grief, and you will get through it. And that's the important thing to understand is as excruciating as this pain is, it's almost impossible to believe that you're going to move through it and that you're going to be okay, but you will be. The next stage of grief is the anger and the bargaining. This is where suddenly all of that pain and guilt starts to subside and it's replaced with this incredible anger. And you're just pissed off at the world, at everything. And you might try bargaining. Some people will try to bargain with God. If you do this, I'll do that. And of course that never works. There's not a bargain that can be struck that will end this grief process, that will make whatever it is come back, especially if a loved one dies. There's nothing bringing them back. So that bargaining with God of if only you would bring them back, I promise I'll be a better person. That's not going to work. The anger I want to touch a little bit more on. I know for myself, I spent a long time of my life being in an angry state and not understanding why. And so I did a lot of work on trying to identify the emotions that were under the anger and dealing with that instead of just dealing with the anger. And what I found is I actually processed myself out of anger to the point where I didn't allow myself to feel anger. And that's not healthy either. So, as destructive as your anger may feel, as long as you are not being destructive to self, destructive to others, destructive to property, it is okay to feel it. It is a natural feeling. And it's an important step to moving on. So, anger and bargaining are the third stage. Then we move into depression, reflection, and loneliness. And this can be a really hard stage for people. That having zero joy, the looking back and seeing all the things you could have done differently, the loneliness, the feeling like there's nobody in the world that can relate to you. It's a really, really hard stage to be in. And if you're in the grieving process and you're in this place, I highly recommend speaking with a professional and help you move through these emotions. This is a stage that most people get the most stuck in, because once that depression starts spiraling down, it's really hard to start stepping it back up and coming back into life. So again, stage 4 is depression, reflection, and loneliness. And if that's where you are and you feel like you are stuck, please reach out to a professional and get help. I promise you will get through this. The 5th stage of grief in the 7 stages that I prescribe to is the upward spiral, or the upward turn. And this is where life starts to get a little bit lighter. You've been feeling that depression, that loneliness, you've been reflecting, and suddenly you get like these little flickers of joy. You get these flickers of happiness, which might actually be immediately followed with guilt. Again, this is completely natural, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But you start to see the positive again in your life. And this is a good sign. Next is reconstructing and working through. When you lose something in your life, you have to reconstruction your life, because that thing is no longer there. There's an empty space, a hollowness of what has been lost. And so it's completely natural to start rebuilding. It'd be like if you punched a hole in a wall, which I don't recommend, but if you punched a hole in a wall, there's an empty space there, and now you have to fill the hole. And our lives are very much the same way. So when we lose somebody and we're going through our grieving process, it's important that we then turn around and fill that void in order for us to be whole again. And lastly, we reach the acceptance in the stage of acceptance and hope. And this is where we finally understand that the thing that we lost is gone and that it's not coming back. And it's also the stage where we realize that although we still hurt, and we will probably always carry that small part of hurt in our heart, we're actually okay to be okay. It's actually okay to have happiness. It's okay to be moving on. It's okay to start wishing and hoping for the future. And this is the stage that we want to get back to. Now, I touched a little bit on the upward spiral and it being followed by guilt. And I just want to touch very quickly on the 7 stages of grief is not a linear journey. Your grief might go from shock and denial to anger, then into feeling like you're coming on the upward spiral, but then you might fall back into depression, Or you might go through the 7 stages very quickly and then turn around and bam, you're back in one of the stages again. Again, this is normal. There's no prescribed truth or journey to healing when it comes to grief. And some grief cycles are going to be very, very short. And other grief cycles are going to take a long time to get through. My mom has been gone for 5 years. And some days, oh, my heart breaks. And other days I'm like, yeah, it's been 5 years. It's okay. And that is normal. My dad has been gone for a year and a bit. Again, some days are like, wow, I can't believe he's gone. And the next day it's like, God, it seems like he's been gone forever. Like it's just this, it's a very different healing cycles that I've gone through with both of them. So again, if you find that you are stuck in your grief, please reach out and get some help. It's not somewhere you have to stay stuck. Allow yourself to feel the emotions, whatever they are, whether it be pain, whether it be guilt, whether it be anger, allow yourself to feel it. So I'm just going to quickly read off the 7 stages again, just so that we're clear on what they are. Stage 1 is shock and anger. Shock and denial. I'm really stuck on the anger myself today. Stage 1, shock and denial. Stage 2, pain and guilt. Stage 3, anger and bargaining. Stage 4, depression, reflection, and loneliness. Stage 5 is the upward turn. Stage 6 is reconstruction and working through. Stage 7 is acceptance and hope. That's it for me today. Be good to one another. Take care of yourself. And I lost what I was going to say. Oh my goodness. Stay safe, be good to one another, and love yourself a little more each day.